We are creatures of habit, aren't we? Everything we do is based on a habit. And for most part, habits are good. But when it comes to life and business or even career, I think habits really have a negative impact if they become sort of like a blind path, right? Okay, so this is based on today's quote. And today's quote is by Musonius Rufus, Gaius Musonius Rufus. And so he says, so in the majority of other things, we address circumstances not in accordance with the right assumptions, but mostly by following wretched habit. The person in training must seek to rise above so as to stop seeking out pleasure and steering away from pain. Now, seeking pleasure and moving away from pain is fundamental to human behavior. It drives what we do most of the time. Now, of course, there are certain situations where we might sacrifice our kind of pleasure and actually go towards pain for a bigger goal, maybe a greater good, or for a loved one, or for some life goals and so on and so forth. But on a daily basis, usually when we don't have a stake in the game or, out of habit, we usually go towards pleasure and move away from pain. And habit is something that plays a part in that, because habit starts out as being maybe painful, but it actually, the brain adapts to turning a habit into a pleasurable thing. And then, of course, we then just, keep moving in that direction. Now, we see this happen in businesses and at workplaces. And in fact, this is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs, for businesses looking for new gaps in the market. Because if a certain market or if a certain industry or if a certain segment is doing things in a certain way, then there is a gap for an entrepreneur to step in, to disrupt that industry and to sort of offer a new solution, right? And we've seen this happen with, for example, the finance sector, where fintech, the new wave of web-based and app-based and blockchain, or all those new technologies, they stepped in and are disrupting the kind of archaic and traditional kind of finance industries, where things have been done for tens of years, scores of years, or maybe even hundreds of years in terms of how banking was done and how people perceived banking. Now, that's about the business sector, but what about in your daily life, right? What about in your personal life? If you're doing something out of habit, always question yourself, right? Is this the right assumption? Am I doing this thing for the right reasons? And this could help you break down bad habits, right? It could help you break down things that you feel are out of your control or you feel helpless. So when you approach a habit, right, whether it's good or bad, I mean, I'm not just talking about bad habits. It's not like, for example, maybe a habit to have one too many drinks on a Saturday, or a habit to avoid certain kinds of difficult tasks at work, which is the same as procrastination, because procrastination, the root of procrastination is based on seeking pleasure and moving away from pain. And that becomes a habit, right? So when you start a day or when you start a project, do you typically sort of leave difficult tasks to the end and then try and tackle easy tasks? Now, there is a school of thought, and a lot of people might not agree with me, where they say, go for the low-hanging fruit first. Do the easy tasks first so that you get the momentum and you can then do the difficult tasks. And they say that if you start with the difficult tasks, then your brain might fatigue, you might get frustrated, and you might actually end up abandoning the whole thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. In fact, yes, I used to do, I used to follow the same kind of concept maybe a few years ago, where when I sit down for a project, right? So let's say I sit down to do a brand naming project. Now, in the brand naming project, one of the most difficult things is to do semantics. And when I get to that semantic stage, I always used to tend to sort of put semantics to the end, right? Now, of course, it's probably a bad example because in the brand naming process, there is a little bit of a structure. So, I'm forced to do certain things at the beginning. But that just came to mind, and I'm just telling you what I used to do. But now, when I open a project and when I need to do something, even if it's an incubator, right, where I need to evaluate a startup and say, okay, is this a startup that I can work with, that that we need to invest in? Looking at the financials, of course, is the most painful thing, and I always try and used to put it to the end. But now, that is what I tackle first, because tackling difficult things initially or to start with may seem like the thing that would frustrate you and might actually make you abandon the whole thing. But contrary to that, it actually helps you gain momentum on the project. Because if you do easy things first, and when you get to the difficult task, you will have a tendency to procrastinate, right? You will have a tendency to say, okay, you know what? I've done enough tasks for today on this particular project. Let me just move on to something else. I'll come back to this, maybe tomorrow when I'm fresh. So let's do some of the easy tasks. And you get habituated to doing easy tasks all the time. But let's say you just open up the difficult task and you say, to hell with this, right? I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to do it. Then what happens is that you will form a habit to sort of move through the difficult tasks first and then pick up the easy tasks. So yeah, evaluate your life, right? Look at your life and say, am I doing things just because I've been doing things like this for a long time? Or is there merit in what you're doing, right? If there is merit, that's fine. But if you think, oh, hang on, actually, I don't really need to do that, right? I don't really need to do this. It has no direct impact on the outcome of whatever I'm doing or on my well-being, on my mindset, then just do it in a different way. Try to figure out to do it in a different way. And look, if you're a businessman, if you're an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, if you're an entrepreneur, then look for gaps where people do things out of habit. And it has really worked well for me. When we look at startups that are innovating, that come into the marketplace, and the question is, should we go for this startup? Should we invest our time and money or effort in it? I always sort of think through the same process. I said, does it disrupt a habit? Okay, disrupt maybe is a is a tricky word. So keep it simple. Is this task, or is this project, or is this app, is this habit, is this startup, would it break down a habit? Maybe a senseless habit, or maybe a habit that seems to be working well, but it's been going on forever. That's how I look at it. I hope you. I know. I do these in live mode. I don't edit. This is raw. So I just record it and then I post it. So sometimes this is actually the first time I'm having a bit of a gaffe, right? So anyway, I hope you found this video useful. And if you have any questions about this particular one in relation to business you're doing, maybe marketing activities, and how habits are forming the base of those marketing activities, then send me an email. Just leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter, and we can discuss this. Or maybe I can do an offshoot video on procrastination if that is your problem. It was my problem for many years, and I think I've overcome it. So maybe I'll do a video on that. All right, till my next video, take care.